They stick. You see they've stuck again. So, let's open it up, see what's going on. First things first, like all of them, gotta remove this rubber mat. Try and do it carefully. So it can be reused. If you don't care about the rubber mat, you can just peel it off in pieces. And you can buy this thin foam rubber from a lot of hobby stores. It just won't say Lemax on the bottom. It won't be monogrammed. So, spare you the long process of peeling this off carefully. We'll pause it and be right back. Okay, we're back, and it didn't turn out as well as it wanted it to. The glue they used was really strong, so it kind of came off in pieces, which is fine. Let me show you how to use a foam mat from a hobby store to re-adhere it. Again, we'll just use the Lemax, or what's left of it. You should know what kind of house you have. If it doesn't say it on the mat, it's usually on the box, or sometimes it's stamped somewhere else in the porcelain. This has a very heavy residue, which we'll scrape off with a knife edge, and the adhesion they use for the bottom, hopefully it's heat sensitive and we can melt it. So that's the next step. If you couldn't tell already, this house is missing pieces. It was bought as a damaged house, a non-functioning damaged house. So we are going to do our best to get most of it back in order and see if we can get it to work. So we're going to use a heat gun, get it up to temperature. I'm going to set it at 250 Celsius, and we're going to see if we can melt this resin. Careful with your fingers. Well, some of it's coming off. There's a chunk of resin. And as I said in a previous video, this is why I like using a temperature sensitive resin or glue. And so if it has to come apart, you can heat it back up. You can do that with super glue, but super glue, you're more likely to break the plastic or the porcelain house. Alright, so a cluttered workspace. The signs of a genius. Or a lazy person. It's a-coming. Take your time. If you have a standard heat gun, you'd want to make bigger passes. This has a little nozzle that helps direct the heat to a smaller area. Because you don't want to melt this base. This base is plastic. Too much heat will actually distort the plastic. I think it broke free. All right. It is broke free, but apparently the characters are wedging it. And we got some wires in the way. That's nice. Slowly but surely. Alright, we need to get these characters to move. Oh, this one's going to pose a problem. It's like the table's too big, right? I don't want to break him off. Got it. So, other than a couple of LED wires that go up inside, which is this yellow and white one right here, it is out. Here's the motor, here's the transmission, and there's resin stuck on these gears. That might be part of the issue. It might be really hard to see, but we have pieces of plastic stuck in the teeth. What I'm doing by running it is I'm checking all the teeth to see if any of them are broken. Now the gears go all the way through. Here's your motor, your transmission, and then your speed adjusting gears. And here's the thing. Transmission spinning, motor's running, but the gear that goes from the output of the transmission to the gears that run these fellas, this gear is not turning. Which indicates to me that it's got a broken tooth. Put that back in frame. And again, I know it's hard to see because it's fully assembled. Something is not right in here. be a light. Looks like we're going to have to disassemble this transmission and find out why this outer gear, the center and the inner, are not syncing up correctly. Could be a crack in one of the shaft arms, could be a crack in the gear and it's skipping. You probably can't hear it on camera, but the motor does skip. About every full revolution of the center gear, the motor jerks the rest of the gears. So, first thing we're going to do, get rid of this speaker. You don't have to take the screws out. The speaker has slip grooves. Get the speaker out of the way. Next, we got to open this transmission up, which are these screws along the outside. Looks like there's about 5 of them. Same thing. First thing we're going to do is start disassembling here's the backing. We do have to take the screws out. You can take the backing off without removing the screw completely, but if you want to take the top off, they do need to come all the way out. Try not to lose your screws. There's the center arch. All these screws are the same, so you don't have to worry about their positioning when you put it back together. And that's all of them. Here's the spinning Frank and spinning Monster. All these teeth look good. I can see them inside, but now that I have it out, you can get a little bit closer look. They all are fine. I'm trying to see how this thing pops off. This whole base is loose, but I need to get the spinning door off. Alright. Make sure there's no screw on the bottom. Nope, nothing on the bottom. Trial and error. There's hopefully no breakage. Looks like there's fingers in here, but they don't seem to move. Well, when your spudger's not strong enough, get a screwdriver. try and do this without breaking it. If it breaks, hopefully it's repairable. Might be hard to see, but right in here are some teeth. It look like 4 fingers. It might be a compression clip that I'm trying to either pop or push in. It is at an angle, which means that something moved. I don't know if it's the right part though. They are fingers. You can see it's got the tab. You're gonna have to compress it. This one snapped. It's still stuck inside. So use a good screwdriver and compress it. It's this flat plastic is the cog that fits in here. I'll show you when we get this cover off. And that metal pin aligns to the hole in the bottom of the gear to keep it centered. So, now we're going to expose the drivetrain. These screws are shorter than the top ones, so keep them separate. They have the same exact heads, they're just physically shorter. Carefully walk this off so you don't lose all the gears like I just did. Here's the cog to gear, and this could be part of the problem. Now we have glue going inside the gearbox. Gears like to spin freely, not have this resistive glue piece. So, just so you can get a visual representation outside. This gear has a slot in it. And then slides on. So that way this will turn and this keeps it in alignment. And that is one tight fit. This is the gear that's not spinning, and now we know why. If you can see, there's some teeth missing right there, and there's a tooth missing right there. That gear is supposed to be, complete. I'm going to check the next gear, which is the gear that drives this gear. This gear is intact. So we got a broken gear. That is the reason this works intermittently. So the hard part is now we need to try and find a gear that's going to match. So we're going to stop the video for now until I can go through all my stuff and see if I have something around here that will do the job. Be back soon. Okay, this gear, oops, I do not have, but I did find them. You can find them on eBay. It is a standard toy hobby gear. It is a 52-2A gear. It's a standard gear. Probably using a lot of other Lemax too. They're not very expensive. I found 100 of them for $3.11, which includes shipping. Granted, I only need one, but since there's a lot of these animatronic houses out there, I'm sure more will come in handy. So I am going to order a replacement gear, 100 of them, for $3. If you need to know, again, it's a 52-2A gear. The dimensions of the gear, some places need to know the dimensions, and if you don't feel like whipping out a metric ruler, because everything's in metric. The outside diameter is 2.7 centimeters. The inside hole where the shaft goes through is 1.9. How I do mine is I measure mine with a digital caliper that is in metric and inch. And kind of hard to see with the glare of the light, but just to show you, it is 26.95, which is basically 27. And then to measure the hole, use the other end. It's a little harder to do. .91. So we will go ahead and buy this, and then whenever it arrives, we'll continue this video. Fortunately, it's coming from China, so to the United States it's going to take about a month or so to get here. So we will continue this project once the parts show up. At which point we will also glue a new bottom on. Show you how to make a new bottom out of a sheet of hobby foam. Till then. Alright, we're back. After tearing apart some more electronics, I was able to find some gears. This is the original. That are within a 0.5 millimeter, same diameter, with similar sized shafts. These two have much larger shafts, but they fit over the stud. And I found I had two gears like this. And I was able to put one in here. As you can see, they're spinning as fast as they can go. And the difference is this gear, besides it being broken, is thinner. And it's got a small nose on the front. Where this one has that small nose, this one has another gear. Basically, this came out of, it's hard to see with this right in there. That gear came out of a VCR. I tear stuff apart, hence the reason we're the Random Junk Channel. So. This is kind of where I get my gears and pulleys from. Here's a 1970s cassette player. And you just take all this apart. You got pulleys. The bands are pretty well shot, but you have pulleys, you have a motor, or motors. These are much larger than you'd probably use in any Lemax or Department 56 items. But this is what I do. I tear the stuff apart. I keep the parts that I can reuse to fix these. And I have an entire drawer full of parts. I just haven't torn apart a more recent VCR to find the correct gear. This gear, like I said, you can find on eBay. $3.11 for 100 of them. It's a smoking deal. I still might get it just so I have the correct replacement part if this gear breaks again, or if it's the same gear used in other houses. So, as you can see, it's back together. It's spinning. Sorry for the interruption there. But it's back together and spinning. And it's good to go. I'm going to screw it down, then we'll go through the process of reinserting it. Alright, I disassembled it again, put some grease on the gears, I just use white grease, plumber's grease. You can go to a hobby store and get hobby grease. But since it's a part, might as well put some extra lubrication in there. Screws are back in. I also cleaned up some of the glue residue around the edge. As you can see, spins just fine. Spins a little bit faster now it's greased. Important lubrication. You don't want the gears binding and wearing out the holes in either the gear itself or in the plastic body. So, if you want to tear stuff apart, find a similar gear that's the same diameter with the same teeth pattern so they mesh like that. Also need to make sure they're the same height, which you can tell these are different. This one I did have to trim off the piece right here, the nose, so it fit inside where the standoff is. So, careful with an Xacto knife, or if you have some flush cutters. So, there it is. Also, when I had the house upside down, checking everything, I found one of the missing pieces stuck inside the porcelain. Something like this inside, it's bouncing around, get caught in this transmission. This hard piece of resin can break the teeth as well. So that'll get glued back on when we're done. There's nothing else hiding inside the little crevices. So, of all the pieces it's missing, I was only able to find one. So, I'm gonna clean off some of this residue. So we can get this thing back together. Some hard resin. Clean up the whole thing, that way we can put the new mat on it and make it all nice and new. So I'm going to get to cleaning this. We'll be back when we're ready to install it. Alright, to reassemble the top of this, just like it's supposed to be. Just like the disassembly, just backwards. This is all scraped, ready for a new bottom. Got the glue gun heating up. Got the circuit board set where it's supposed to go. We'll tack it with some glue like they had originally. Still works. So, for reassembly, just carefully slide it back in like it was before. Once you have it close to aligned, I would then run the glue. I wouldn't run the glue first because you have to literally finagle this in. You'll never get it in without a little bit of a problem. This one's really tight, so we are going to reassemble it. First things first, put a little dab of glue right there on the circuit board. And next we're going to try and walk this thing in. You saw how much of a pain it was to take out. Gonna be about the same going in. Gonna rotate it a little bit. want the character not coming out of this door because of the indentation right here. See if that makes it fit better. Wires in the way. The wire's supposed to go behind. Almost. So close, but no cigar. See if we can get this side in first. No. Damn little wires. And attempt number 3. Yeah, once it goes in, this far, it always seems to get stuck. Just trying to rotate it to see if that would help. Seem to make things worse. Gonna read here these wires. Hopefully they'll stay out of my way. It's just trial and error. Be patient. Try not to break it worse than it already was. Try not to glue yourself to the unit. Like me. Alright, so let that harden. See if we get this back in. Unbeknownst to me, the memory card filled up. So you didn't get to see how this got put back together. The trick I used was I actually popped this part off and let it float inside while I got the bottom aligned. And then using my fingers and really small pliers, I was able to line up and then push it back together by pressing on the base where the characters are glued on. Then I just ran a bead of resin or hot glue around it, set it in, and then backfilled it with more, so that way it's a nice solid attachment. I don't know why, but the camera picks up a lot of the motor noise. It's not as loud as the camera makes it. I went and reviewed it, but it does fully function. You can see characters are spinning. It's picking up a lot of noise on the microphone, but the camera is not as bad as well, let me rephrase that. It's not as bad as the camera's making it out to be. So it's not near as loud as what it sounds. So as far as this goes, you have now a rebuilt blood bank. Of course, again, this one's missing some pieces. I'll probably find some like little Lemax pumpkins or even the wooden ones that you can find at hobby stores. Maybe glue them on, or take some of the miniature headstones, which sometimes I can find at Michael's, that are not Lemax because they're smaller than the Lemax headstones, which are usually a little bit taller. So this is all done. On the next video, I'll show you how to make a base with a rubber mat. Any questions or comments, leave them below. Thank you. All right, we're going to show you how to, on this house, put a new rubber mat on the bottom. Very easy. Only take you a few minutes. What you're going to need is, you can use an Xacto knife, scissors, a pen, marker, Sharpie, whatever, and a glue gun. Or you can use spray adhesive or any other tacky glue, and then a rubber or foam mat. This mat is 18 by 12 and it's an 1/8 inch thick, so it is thicker than the standard base for Lemax. So pretty much all you do is make sure your bottom's as clean as you can get it. I've scraped this one, got it down to where it's pretty much the same height all the way around. There is some residue from the other one. There's nothing too bad. It's been relatively cleaned off. You can get cleaner if you want. Hot glue is pretty indiscriminate of what it's going to stick to when it comes to small particles of dust. It's not really going to hurt it. Alright, so what we're going to do is plug in the hot glue gun. Get a glue stick for it. Oh. Set your house on the base. Right. Like so. And trace it out. Very simple. Sure, it's a very easy, self-explanatory process. These rubber or foam rubber mats you can get, this one came from Hobby Lobby. When I bought it, it was 88 cents. I have them in black and blue. The blue I usually use for water scenes, but they come in all sorts of colors over there at Hobby Lobby. I've seen them in green, brown, yellow, red. You can use them for different things, different scenes. So it might be hard to tell because it's a blue marker on a black base. You can see the outline. And you can use an Xacto knife or a very sharp razor and cut it, which it'll cut just fine. Because these aren't very dense, scissors work wonderful. You can use scissors. And I'm going to cut on the inside of the line. That way the rubber mat is not larger than the base of the house. You have plenty of mat left over for the next one that you want to do. All right. Other than a little dirt from my workbench, mat seems to fit just fine. So, next step's pretty simple. We're just going to glue it. The gun's not up to temperature yet, but if you use spray adhesive, like the stuff they use on automotive upholstery, which does work, Spray it on here, spray it on your mat, let it sit for the recommended time, which is generally about 1 to 2 minutes, till they get tacky, and then apply it starting on one side and working your way across. Whether you do it this way or the long way. When I do it on other projects, I usually apply from the smaller side and then slowly, because on a lot of them, once you tack them down, it's permanent. If you want to use super glue, I do a bead in the center and a bead on the outer edge, and then just stick it down. You can use the super glue gels, which gives you a little bit more play time before they harden. I don't like the acetate glues. One, some foams can't handle it, they'll melt. Two, this stuff's like a sponge. It's a very dense sponge, and it can absorb it, so you don't get very good adhesion. I prefer to stick with hot glue or resins, but something that you can break off carefully with a spudger or a screwdriver or a spatula, or something that's heat sensitive so you can heat it up to take it apart. So I like to stick with hot glues and resins that are based on heat. So again, it's personal preference. I'm just telling you what I do based on past experiences. So still waiting for it to get hot. So it'll be just a moment. Alright, the glue gun is hot. So what I'm doing is wiping off the part that's going to adhere. The bottom here is fine, it's got some dust on it, but I'm just wiping this off. And then I'm going to run my glue. I'm just going to glue it to the porcelain part of the house, not to the plastic, which is the center, in case I have to take it apart to repair it one more time. So I'm just going to run my bead around the edges. Like so. And then starting on the edge and working my way out. And there you go. Stays on, good to go. Again, it is thicker than the original Lemax. Might help you in your display. You can glue multiple mats together if you want to increase the height a lot, depending on how you display your houses. But if you do not want a solid bottom, like they have after you tear the bottoms off, you can just get hobby foam. They do make it thinner. I just buy the thicker stuff because I like the way it feels and it comes in handy for other projects. And I don't mind the extra thick base on my houses. So, personal preference, very simple. You just need a couple of tools. Trace it, cut it, glue it, put it back in your display. Till next time.